The young woman was stuffed into an iron bucket filled with honey. A straw was attached, and the bucket was completely sealed. She was then pushed, bucket and all, into a sealed room sprayed with gasoline. After the only oxygen supply tube was disconnected, a match was immediately struck and thrown into the room, instantly engulfing it in flames. The girl had to hold her breath for 10 minutes and endure temperatures exceeding hundreds of millions of degrees Celsius. Because of her allergies, she couldn't tolerate any bacteria, so the attempt was to sterilize her with the high temperature to create an absolutely sterile environment. However, as the honey solidified under the heat, the girl fell into a coma. Seeing the flames slowly die down, everyone quickly removed the heat from the room and injected large amounts of sterile oxygen. But no matter how much they called out to her, the girl remained unconscious. Any response, despite everyone's extreme anxiety and helplessness, was futile. A hasty entry would surely ruin everything. Just when they thought the rescue had failed, the solidified honey in the bucket suddenly burst open, and Kuei Hua emerged unharmed, all his symptoms disappearing. It turned out that Kuei Hua had a congenitally low immune system and couldn't be exposed to any bacteria from birth. Therefore, he had lived in a sterile chamber since childhood. But just moments before, a hurricane had swept through the town, causing Kuei Hua's roof to collapse, along with a large tree. As Fobo tried to clear the debris, unbeknownst to them, the fallen branches were entangled in high-voltage power lines. A slight mishap could result in everyone being crushed to death. Seeing that the sterile chamber was about to collapse, Kuei Hua. They quickly found an air cushion and mattress, trying to stabilize the still-falling tree branch. However, a high-voltage power line suddenly snapped, and sparks flew wildly across the sterile chamber. If this continued, the protective membrane would eventually burn through. Desperate, Uberle had to find a protective suit to try and pull the girl out first. But the moment he stepped out, Wu Junkang was also crushed by the impact. Everyone thought they could get him to the hospital safely, but the material of the hazmat suit caused Kuei Hua to become infected with bacteria. Large pustules instantly appeared on the girl's body, and she began to have difficulty breathing, on the verge of losing consciousness. But they were still hundreds of kilometers away from the hospital, and she couldn't hold on until then. With things as they were, they had no choice but to stop. In a public restroom, they prepared to create a sterile room. They found honey, which could isolate the honey from the air, and had Kuei Hua crawl inside. Meanwhile, another group coated the restroom with alcohol, pushed in gas, and immediately set the room ablaze. As the honey hardened under the intense heat, they introduced sterile oxygen, leading to the scene described at the beginning of the story. When Kuei Hua emerged, all his rejection reactions disappeared, and he miraculously survived. He was then transferred to a hospital and given a new lease on life. The film ends here. This story teaches us that when you encounter